Welcome to the Be Ruthless Show, where we have the conversations that other people don't, the conversations that other people won't. I'm your host, Sam Ruth, and I'm ready to make a lot of noise and disrupt things, ruthlessly. Thanks for being here today. Now let's get to it. Welcome back to the Be Ruthless Show. I'm your host, Sam Ruth, and joining me today is Barbara Legere, who is the author of Keven's Choice, A Mother's Journey Through Her Son's Mental Illness, Addiction, and Suicide, and co-author of the best-selling book, The Epiphanies Project. As an advocate for those suffering from substance use disorders, mental health issues, and grief, she's been featured in Salon and the Huffington Post, and something else that we haven't updated, Prevention, I believe.
Yes.
Look at that. Legere lives in Southern California with her sister, Therese, as well as her cat, Tortoise, and 2 dogs we were just discussing. Thank you so much for being here and for having this conversation, which so many shy away from. So thank you.
You are welcome, and thank you for having me here to talk.
Why don't you start? The floor is yours, because I think that there are few who do this and few who openly share. So I am just grateful and want this to be your opportunity to get it out here.
Okay, I'll just share my story of my son. I was a single mom when I had my son, and he was my only child. And I noticed when he was around 3rd grade that he had depression and he was struggling. And otherwise, he was just normal, happy, funny, your regular active little kid. But at that time, I noticed something, and his teacher recommended to me that I take him to a psychiatrist. And this was so new to me. I had, nothing had ever prepared me for something like that, but I did. And from that point forward, I started really keeping an eye on him to just check and see how he was doing. He did okay until he started being bullied at school. And that was just heartbreaking. So again, I had him back in therapy, and this time they recommended medication. So he started taking an antidepressant for the first time. And that went well. It did make a change in him. I started taking one as well, just to see, because my doctor had told me my whole life, you need to get on this. I just didn't want to. I was one of those people that thought, oh, it changes you. I don't want to try it. Well, it doesn't change you. It just lifts that horrible burden of the dark cloud. So I was so glad that I did. And then Keven, his name is Keven. He had a great time in junior high, which is those scary years they always warn you of, watch your kids in junior high. And those were 2 of his very best years. And after that, he discovered drugs. All the kids were experimenting, marijuana, alcohol, and so he did too. And then he met someone that introduced him to heroin at age 17, and that was it for him. Every day from that day forward, his life had changed to the point where that is what he lived for. That is how he lived his life, trying to get enough heroin to keep himself from getting sick. Because at first you get high, and then you take it to feel normal. I think a lot of people don't understand that part, and it's tragic. So that put him into the system of the justice system and going to rehabs and in and out of jail. And at age 18, he attempted suicide for the first time. And at the time, I wasn't sure how serious he was, because he told us what he was doing. He said he took a handful of pills and then he ran out of the house. So immediately I started chasing after him while I had 911 on the phone. They sent a helicopter and everything. We did find him right before he passed out. So that was the beginning of his mental health issues, and in and out of the mental health facilities, which there really aren't any. It's only the 72-hour hold if you're suicidal. So that became part of his life as well. We were so close I love my son more than anything. And I did everything I knew how to do. And he tried his best, but he could not stop using drugs. And the way he saw it, that was his problem. He didn't recognize the depression and the anxiety. I mean, he talked about that. He knew about it, but he didn't recognize that as his reason for no longer wanting to live. So after, let's see, how many years? 10 years of this, he did choose to end his own life. And the way I look at it, we had talked about it so many times. He had begged me not to be mad at him if he did it. And so I wasn't mad. I wouldn't allow myself to feel guilty, because that's the first thing you feel. I should have been able to prevent this, you know. I just couldn't go there. I didn't think I'd ever be able to get off that road if I went down it. So I just kept remembering everything he said, and how he wanted to be out of pain and suffering, and how he had a feeling that he would not live to be 30. So after that, you know, your life changes in that one moment, as you know, when you lose someone that you love so much, and everything changes. A few months after that's when I decided to write a book, and everyone was kind of surprised, like, you're writing a book about your son already? And I'm like, yes, I am, because he's kind of telling me to. I just had this nagging, I couldn't get rid of it. It was a nagging thing on my mind all the time. So I joined a writing group, I wrote the book, and I felt so much better, because I just want to share with everyone out there what a serious problem mental illness is, how difficult it is to get really good help. It's just not available, especially if you don't have good insurance. And the tragedy of losing someone, and how you feel so alone when you lose a child. And I want to reach out to those parents and let them know they're not alone, and hopefully educate people on things they can say and not say to a parent that's lost a child, because, you know, you hear a lot of things when you're grieving that don't really help.
Obviously, I know there are no words, but so deeply sorry for your loss. I know it's as deep now as it is the day that it happens. And thank you for addressing the mental illness component. I'm impressed that a teacher made a call to a parent in that way. It shouldn't be that way. I feel like teachers spend so much time with our students, and teachers who are invested like this and who make that call need to be the majority, not the exception. So was that helpful? How did you even take that in?
I took it very seriously, and I was very appreciative, because she called me aside. I was picking him up from school, and she called me aside and said, I've noticed Keven is not participating in class. He's not smiling like he used to smile, and he's not having lunch with his friends. And she said, I think this is serious, because at home he was still playing with his, you know, childhood friends on our street, and he was, you know, still relatively funny. And so I didn't see what was going on. I would hear him at home sometimes complaining, and he was very anxious about school. He didn't like school. So yes, I was grateful to her, Mrs. Enmeyer. I will always remember her.
And I speak too frequently. I'm stuttering because I hesitate every time I go there, but I'm originally from Michigan, and the school systems are amazing. And this would be a common experience for me. And I'm in Colorado now, and I am not saying anything about the teachers, but the entire education system is different. And I don't hear teachers reaching out or making that call, and I don't know the reasons. And so I want anyone listening to know that even if it's uncomfortable, it helps. You see things that they're not seeing at home if they're still socializing or interacting. And so I'm glad she played a role. And then you mentioned medication, and you as well taking it. And Keven not recognizing that was an issue. I'm wondering if he also didn't recognize that that was probably part of what led him to use.
I think eventually he did as he got older, and he, did some more thinking and introspection. But at the time, I don't think he did. But yes, people usually start using to fill some void, some hurt, some pain. Now, it's not for a recreational fun. It may start like that, but once you feel what it does for you and you go, wow, I want to feel like this all the time. Like, I don't have a problem in the world and everything's great.
A lot of my clients who have anxiety connected to school are often not heard because we're focused on getting your homework done and dealing with it, and it's not taken so seriously. So I'm curious about your thoughts around that, and how we can help teenagers included recognize that that's real and there's support and we can get through it together.
It is real. I mean, Keven and I used to cry together at homework time because it was so difficult for him. And we found out that he had dysgraphia, which made it difficult for him to write, which made him feel stupid, which has nothing to do with intelligence, but the kids made fun of his writing because it looked so juvenile, so, young for his age. So yes, I think parents need to take it seriously when their children is struggling in school, and do whatever you can. I mean, therapy helped Keven because he was real open. He liked talking about it. He liked having a male therapist. That was really a big deal to him since he was from a single family home. Any guy that paid attention to him helped him, which was another, I think, part of his depression, that he felt like he was missing out. And that was another part, a huge part of my guilt, huge. But yeah, I think as parents, we do have to take our kids seriously, especially these days when we see what's going on in schools, and the bullying is very scary. I mean, I belong to so many sites for parents that have lost their children, and it is alarming how many young kids, and I'm talking 14 and under, have taken their lives due to bullying. It is just, it's horrifying.
And it's everywhere. I mean, I go back to school and I could go home at the end of the day. There wasn't social media. So I cannot, I can't even comprehend what a teenager goes through in this day and age. And I try to get out support available for teens needing that. There's also not support for parents saying, what do I do? Where do I turn? And I feel like that is why we have to have that communication with the schools. But I love that you said that Keven enjoyed therapy and was open about it. Many people have had bad experiences. In my experience, teenagers with anxiety and depression open up if they connect with the right therapist, and that's a relief. And that's one thing off of their shoulders. So even letting our own perceptions of therapy go, they benefit. And then there's options available. 2 heads are better than 1, 3 are better than 2, and it becomes a team approach. So I'm glad that what are you doing to this day? Because unfortunately, parents are losing children every day, and I have not had that direct loss. So I immediately feel the need to connect my clients with someone who gets it, because there is a different immediate connection that you have that I won't.
For me, the thing that helped me most after I lost Keven was having a support group of other parents who were in the same boat. They are the only people that understood what I was going through. The woman who started my support group lost her son to overdose back in 2010, when it was not talked about in the media, when it was still brand new. And her group shunned her. They'd lost their children to cancer, accidents and stuff, and they acted like her loss was not as important as theirs. And it broke her heart to the point where she started a group, which has now become huge, huge online and in person. We have 3 meeting places in Orange County. But that's what helps, is those other parents that know what you're going through, that will call you, that know it's your son's birthday or your daughter's anniversary of passing, and they will say your child's name and they'll ask you about your child. And we share how we're feeling every day. That is what matters the most. And I wish there were more opportunities for parents to have those kind of, I mean, there are groups, there's great groups on Facebook for any type of loss you've had as a parent. They categorize them. So I belong to a suicide loss and an overdose. I lost someone who's like a son to me to overdose. That's how I first met my support group. So they were already in place for 7 years by the time I lost Keven. So I felt like I had a landing net, a safety net when he passed. I mean, the first thing I did after I called, my family member was call them. But yeah, I think that's so important. Even if you can just find 3 or 4 other parents that are in your boat, it doesn't have to be a big group. But
And you don't have to participate. The same is true for me with being a widow. I immediately was looking for because I have a great family and friends, and they get it to a point and they love me as much as, but we need those people. And even right before we started recording, I was talking to someone just who gets it, who understands that sometimes you need to vent, and it's not regressing, and it's not the way the rest of the world would take it.
Exactly. And our families want to I think they want to see us get over it. Our family and friends that love us, they want to see us get over it and get to this other side, but there is no other side. It never goes away, and it never will. And I wouldn't even want it to, because it's love. It's a form of, I love you so much, I miss you every second of every day. And that doesn't mean I can't have a good life or find joy. It just means it's never going to go away. There's a hole left in your heart. So yeah, that is my biggest thing too, is if so, like, I can't relate to your loss because I have never even been married, but to have somebody that knows what you've been through, it just makes such a big difference.
And I'll even take it further and say, in the widow community, there are widows who need to move on quickly and struggle being alone and remarry. And I am not a part of that community. There's also those of us who still wear our wedding rings and still talk in the present tense about our forever soulmates. And that I need them because I can't relate to the thought of dating. And I don't disrespect or judge those who do. I just can't, we don't connect in the same way. So it really is finding the right people and being able to take that step. And I don't know about you, but for me, I've had this now I'm at a space where it's the same either way, but there was a point after losing Jim where it was easier for me to interact with my new connections than it was with the people who knew me before my loss, because unintentionally it comes with comparison.
Absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. And that's interesting. What you just taught me something, because I never thought of that, the different types of widow. My mom was like you. We lost my dad at an early age, still wore the ring every day of her life. He was her love. She never dated again. So that was just her choice, and that's how she was. So that's so true.
So we both were proactive. What would you say to the people who don't immediately think to look for those groups and struggle with reaching out in the beginning? I have a lot of people who will a few months down the road and wish they did earlier. So
yeah. Oh, the beginning is so hard. The first 3 months, it's almost like you're in your own little world. I remember going to the grocery store for the first time and just crying down every aisle because I'd see something I would buy him. And was almost like, why isn't everybody in this store upset that he's gone? I mean, they didn't know him, but it was like, you're in your own world. The whole world should be upset with me. But to answer your question, it is really hard for some people to reach out. It is really hard. I don't know how to encourage them other than to say, you will find comfort. You will find people that want to help you, people that are further along in the journey that will embrace you, because especially with moms, I mean, we embrace each other. It's the club no mom wants to belong to. But once you join, you are in a club for the rest of your life, and you will have those other women in your life. I don't know if it's the same for guys. I know a lot of guys too that feel the same way, but especially for mothers, I think just gritting your teeth and making that first step to go online or go somewhere and find a group. Somebody can email me and I will help them find someone. Anyone that wants to, I would help them find a support group. Because it is scary. I mean, that first month you don't want to eat, you
No.
can't sleep.
And I want to point out that I didn't participate. I wasn't introducing myself and talking right away, but I needed to find a community and at least see their conversations. And that helped me, hearing other people, until I was ready to join in.
Exactly. You don't have to share. If you're in a group setting, you certainly don't have to share. You can just listen, and that will usually help so much, like you just said.
How can people find you? And you mentioned the group that helped you so much. Is that only California based?
No, we have members all over. It's called Solace for Hope, and it's a Facebook group, a private group. So we share very openly whatever we're going through. And I dedicated my book to the founder of Solace for Hope, because she's kind of one of my heroes, and I never thought I'd be in her shoes and trying to turn my pain into helping others, but that's what she did. I just admire her so much. To find me, I have a website. It's my first and last name, Barbara Legere, which is LEGERE.com. And then my email is also in my book, which is Keven's Choice. And I will answer any email I get and try and help any mom, dad, sister, brother. I think siblings are often forgot too, and that needs to be brought up. They're often forgot. They'll be asked, how's your mom doing? How's your dad doing? Not, how are you doing? So yeah.
Great point. And it does, and parents are grieving and lost to everyone, not only a child, but it certainly affects their world. And again, schools, this is a reason that I think we need to communicate with teachers or the counselors at the schools, because if support is available or if it's asked for, it's more likely to happen.
Yes. Oh yeah. Those siblings really they go through so much. It's like their parents have left too, at least for the beginning. So yeah, that's really hard.
A little bit about the book. Is it the type of book where I'm going to have to do homework?
No, it's Keven's story. It's my story of being Keven's mom, but I also include chapters on addiction. I really want to end the stigma against mental health and addiction. So I try to show this is what a normal everyday person's life that is an addict goes through on a daily basis. And I hope people could empathize and have some compassion, and get rid of some of the stigma. Same with mental health. People need help. It's an illness. It's not a choice. But anyhow, and the book does talk a little bit about grief, but mostly it's just about Keven, his life, and hopefully bringing hope to other people so that if they have someone in their life, they can understand. I think the biggest compliment I've got from my book was a mom who lost her son to overdose was able to give the book to her best friend, and her best friend said, I finally get it. I finally get what you were going through all those years while your son was using. So that that's one of my purposes too. It's for the parent that has a child that's still using, that feels so alone, because that is so stressful.
And also, not talked about, support is available if you know how and where to look. So not everyone wants to go to an Al-Anon meeting. What other resources, what direction can someone go? Because talk about judgment, substance abuse comes with preconceived notions. And, my lifetime favorite is the one with all the different people. And it says, these are the faces of, because it can be anyone and it can affect anyone. And if it's not affecting you personally right now, it will through a friend or family member at some point in your life.
Absolutely. And with fentanyl, which, don't get me started. I could go on for an hour on fentanyl. I write a lot about it on my blog, but yeah, it's almost inevitable that you're going to know someone that passes from that, or know their parent or their brother or their sister. What was the question?
To those who are feel, and I hear this a
remember
lot, that even we've touched on it briefly, that people don't talk about him, people don't say his name anymore. What about to parents in initial loss with a feeling ashamed to talk about it because of the stigmas, who then suffer more because they're keeping it in?
Yeah, I see that all the time, and it breaks my heart because, well, as I said, they need to find their people, and their people will embrace them and understand. And like you said, the more we talk about it, the more everyone else will understand that this is happening everywhere, in all kinds of families, all kinds of ethnicities, all kinds of socioeconomic backgrounds, every state across the United States. It's happening to every kind of person, young and old, but mostly young these days. So,
and
it's scary.
By not talking about it, part of my passion is, number one, it's part of healing. When you keep it in, you struggle more. I am not saying that you are ever better and the problem is gone, but it is less painful when you're not silent.
Yes.
And we also give people the perception that we're okay because it's invisible and we physically look like we're getting through life.
Yeah. And the other thing, tell me if this is how you felt, but I felt like I was comforting other people, because they would come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss." And how do I describe this? It was like they were so uncomfortable. They didn't want to talk about Keven. They wanted to ignore the whole thing. And I would end up saying, "Oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. I'm fine." And that was a lie, but I didn't want them to feel bad. So it kind of puts it back on us to make the other person not feel uncomfortable with our own grief, if that makes sense.
And some do. There are secondary losses along the way for every person I know dealing with loss, that whether it's a friend or a family member, and by staying silent, you deny yourself the new people who will come in through these communities and these connections, because unfortunately, there are just people who expect you to be okay by a certain point, or whatever happens, but it happens in every single story I hear.
Yep. Snap out of it. You're not better yet. You're still grieving. I mean, I laugh, but it is not funny. It happens.
It happens. And it happens. I mean, different people have different time frames, but I had at 3 months. By now, I thought you'd be calling me more. Listen, I got 2 feet on the floor and I'm out of bed. That's a successful day. Calling you was not remotely on the list, and the world doesn't get that. And so to people listening, I also want to say, even if you don't know what to say or how to comfort, or you think you're going to stumble and say something wrong, we'd rather hear from you. We need you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And just saying, well, my next book, I just decided I'm writing this today. So this is new.
Woo!
My next book is going to be about this topic: what to say, what not to say, how to help somebody who's grieving a loss. And just to say, hey, how are you doing today with the loss of Jim? I was just thinking about Jim. Here's a memory of Jim. Saying his name, bringing up memories, asking you how you are. I mean, those are still little easy things, but it makes people uncomfortable.
But they're not little to us, right?
No,
There are a handful of people for you who do that and ask directly about Keven, and the same with me. And I tell others, please share your memories. Please talk about Jim. It hurts me to not talk about him. I light up the minute we start talking about him.
too.
And that's how I keep him with me. And so to those that it does make uncomfortable, no disrespect, I don't care. Right. But to those that it doesn't, it opens the door to keep them with us and to talk about them more and to be true to them and ourselves.
Exactly. I always tell people my favorite thing to do is talk about Keven. And like you said, I think people see a change on my face the second the conversation is about him. Because I don't dwell on the bad things anymore, the difficult years. I just love my son. I just love my son.
I love that. And to anyone struggling, you can connect with Barbara at Barbara Legere. That's LEGERE.com. And it's also in the show notes with a link to the book. And we all want to stay connected and be there when the next one does come out. So you'll have to keep us posted on that. Any last thoughts or final words for people?
Oh, well, my final words are, I am just so sorry to any parent, but you are not alone. And please, please just take that little step or that huge step for you to reach out and find someone else, even if it's just one other person that can be there for you when you need it. To say, hey, how's Jim? How's Keven? Or, I was thinking about them.
And that instant connection, there is an instant connection in the lost community, right? We are instantly connected. And I am a certain type. I know right away that the parents who have lost a child that I will send to you, because you saying, I'll help them find that group. I'll take that stress off. You get it. You've been there, and that's how I am. Like, the thought of Googling something was too much.
Oh, yeah. The thought of anything was too much at the beginning. The thought of making food to eat, so you just don't bother eating. But yeah, that's what I live for now. So yeah, email me.
Thank you again so much for being so real and sharing your story and Keven's story. My heart is with you. To everyone listening, again, connect with Barbara Legere at Barbara Legere, LEGERE.com. And until next time, always be ruthless. Thanks so much for listening today. Your support means everything to me, truly. If this podcast resonates with you, please do me a favor and join in the Ruthless movement by making some noise and doing one of these 4 things. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Tell a friend so we can break stigmas even faster. Leave a review so people can see what you think of the show. And last, if you want to learn more about me and be a part of the Grief Hab community, please head on over to the Facebook group. We'd love to have you. Thanks again for spending your time with us, and see you next week.